Some laughter transcends time. When Adam Sandler walked onto the Tonight Show stage with his characteristic shuffling walk and that boyish grin that had entertained millions, nobody expected him to reveal the most heartbreaking secret of his career. Jimmy Fallon had planned a standard promotional interview for Adam's latest comedy. The audience was ready for the silly voices and ridiculous songs that always came with an Adam Sandler appearance. But what Adam was about to confess would silence Studio 6B and prove that sometimes the most important performances happen in hospital rooms where the audience might never see tomorrow. The cameras were rolling, the audience was already chuckling at Adam's endearing awkwardness, and then he spoke 15 words that changed everything. I sing stupid songs to dying kids because sometimes that's all that helps. What came next wasn't just television. It was a revelation about mortality, innocence, and the sacred responsibility of making children laugh when laughter might be all they have left. Adam Sandler had always been known for his childlike sense of humor, the willingness to be silly, to sing ridiculous songs, to embrace the kind of absurdist comedy that appealed to both 8-year-olds and adults who remembered what it felt like to be 8 years old. But what audiences didn't know was that Adam's connection to childhood innocence had been deepened by an unexpected calling that began 8 years earlier when he received a letter that would change his understanding of what it meant to make people laugh. The letter had come from a 10-year-old girl named Emma who was dying of leukemia at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Emma's mother had written to Adam's management company explaining that her daughter was a huge fan of his movies and songs, and that watching The Waterboy and listening to the Chanukah song were among the few things that could still make Emma smile during her treatment. Emma's been in the hospital for 6 months, the letter had read. She's been through chemo, radiation, surgery, and nothing seems to be working. But when we put on your movies, she forgets she's sick. She laughs until her belly hurts, which is the good kind of hurt, not the cancer kind. I know you probably can't respond to every fan letter, but I wanted you to know that your silly songs are giving my dying daughter joy. Adam had been deeply affected by the letter. Here was a child facing the most serious thing imaginable, finding comfort in his most ridiculous work. The responsibility of that connection had overwhelmed him, but more than that, it had awakened something in him that went far beyond professional obligation. I realized that comedy wasn't just entertainment for some people, Adam later explained. For kids like Emma, laughing might be the most important thing they do all day. When you're 10 years old and dying, a stupid song about lunch ladies might be the difference between despair and hope. Adam's first response had been to send Emma a personalized video message, him singing a silly song about being brave that incorporated her name and her favorite things. But when Emma's mother wrote back to say that the video had become Emma's most treasured possession, that she watched it dozens of times each day and had memorized every word, Adam realized that a single video wasn't enough. That weekend, Adam had driven to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and asked if he could visit Emma in person. What was supposed to be a brief meet and greet had turned into a 3-hour visit where Adam sat by Emma's bedside, singing improvised songs about her stuffed animals, making up ridiculous characters based on her doctors and nurses, and helping her forget for just a few hours that she was dying. Emma taught me something that day that changed everything, Adam remembered. She taught me that when you're facing something that's scary, you don't need sophisticated humor or clever wordplay. You need the kind of pure, innocent silliness that reminds you that the world can still be magical, even when it's also terrible. Emma had died 2 weeks later, but not before asking her mother to tell Adam that his visit had been the best day of her whole life, even counting before she got sick. The impact of that feedback had been profound for Adam, who realized that his childlike approach to comedy could provide something precious to children who might not have much time left to be children. From that first visit, Adam had begun what would become an 8-year mission of visiting terminally ill children in hospitals across the country. Unlike his public appearances, these visits were completely private, arranged quietly, through hospital child life specialists and social workers who identified children who might benefit from his particular brand of absurdist comfort. Adam's approach was instinctive and personal. He would arrive at each hospital with his guitar, ready to improvise songs about whatever the children wanted to hear about. He would create characters based on their favorite foods, their pets, their siblings, their dreams. He would sing ridiculous ballads about hospital equipment, write epic songs about the bravery of taking medicine, and compose silly lullabies about beating monsters that looked suspiciously like cancer cells. I learned that dying kids don't need to be treated like they're fragile, Adam explained. They're still kids. They still want to laugh at fart jokes and silly voices. They still think it's hilarious when adults act stupid. The fact that they're sick doesn't mean they've stopped being children. The songs were completely improvised and utterly ridiculous, exactly the kind of humor that had made Adam famous. He would sing about Chemo Man, a superhero whose power was making hair fall out, but who always saved the day. He would create elaborate musical stories about brave vegetables who fought evil viruses. He would write personalized theme songs for each child that celebrated their unique personality and interests. I had one little boy, Marcus, who was obsessed with dinosaurs, Adam recalled, so I spent 2 hours with him creating this epic dinosaur opera where he was the hero dinosaur who saved all the other dinosaurs from meteor extinction. We gave every dinosaur a different silly voice, and by the end, Marcus was singing harmony with me and making up his own verses. Over 8 years, Adam's hospital visits had reached hundreds of children with terminal illnesses. Some he visited multiple times as they went through treatment. Others he met only once during their final days or weeks. Each visit was unique, tailored to the specific child's interests, personality, and medical situation. I've sung to kids who were on ventilators, kids who were too weak to sit up, kids who were scared of their next surgery, Adam said. But I've also sung to kids who were still fighting, still hoping, still believing they might get better. Each situation required different kinds of songs, different kinds of silliness. The emotional impact on the families had been enormous. Parents who had been watching their children suffer found moments of pure joy in seeing their kids laugh and sing along with Adam's ridiculous performances. Siblings who had been overshadowed by their brother or sister's illness got their own personalized songs and attention. Medical staff who dealt with childhood death regularly found relief in witnessing pure happiness in the midst of their most difficult cases. Adam gave us our daughter back for a few hours, wrote Maria Santos, whose 8-year-old daughter Sophia had been one of Adam's visits. Sophia had been so sick and scared that she'd stopped acting like herself. But when Adam started singing that crazy song about her pet hamster becoming a superhero, we saw her real smile for the first time in months. She died 3 days later, but she died remembering that the world could still be funny. Adam kept a private journal of his hospital visits, not for publicity purposes, but because he wanted to remember each child and honor their individual personalities. His notes included details like Tommy, age 7, brain tumor, loves trucks, sang The Ballad of the Mighty Dump Truck and 18-Wheeler Lullaby. Made him laugh so hard he forgot about his headache for an hour. The visits weren't just about performing, they were about connecting. Adam would spend time learning about each child's life, their interests, their family, their dreams. He would incorporate these personal details into his songs, making each child feel seen and celebrated rather than defined by their illness. These kids taught me that humor doesn't have to be sophisticated to be meaningful, Adam reflected. Some of the most important songs I've ever written were completely ridiculous 3-minute improvisations about cartoon characters and favorite foods. But for those kids, in those moments, those songs were everything. The physical and emotional demands of the hospital visits had been significant. Adam often drove long distances to reach children in different cities, spending entire days in pediatric oncology wards and intensive care units. The constant exposure to childhood suffering and death had affected him deeply, but he had never considered stopping because he had seen firsthand how much his presence meant to children and families during their darkest moments. People ask me how I can handle being around dying kids without getting depressed, Adam said, but the truth is, these kids aren't depressing. They're inspiring. They're facing the scariest thing imaginable, and they still want to laugh and sing and be silly. If they can find joy in the middle of that, then I can find the strength to help them do it. Adam's hospital work had remained completely private until a parent had shared a video of one of his bedside performances on social media, leading to inquiries from journalists and other families seeking similar visits. But Adam had been adamant about keeping the work low profile, not wanting it to become a publicity opportunity or to exploit the vulnerable children and families he was serving. The visits were arranged through hospital staff and child life specialists, never through publicists or management companies. Adam paid for all travel expenses himself and never allowed media coverage of the visits. Most importantly, he always asked families for permission before visiting and respected their wishes if they preferred privacy during their child's treatment. Tonight's appearance on The Tonight Show was supposed to be standard promotional fare for Adam's latest family comedy, a film about finding joy in unexpected places. Jimmy had planned to ask about the movie, maybe get Adam to sing one of his silly songs, definitely tap into the nostalgic humor that made him such a beloved guest. But something about the film's themes of cherishing childhood innocence had made Adam more reflective than usual about his most meaningful work. The interview had started exactly as expected. Adam had walked out to enthusiastic applause, settled into the guest chair with his characteristic nervous energy, and begun discussing his new film with the kind of endearing awkwardness that made him so relatable. Jimmy had asked about working with child actors, about the film's message of finding happiness, about Adam's own experiences with maintaining a sense of wonder as an adult. But when Jimmy asked about Adam's most meaningful moment as an entertainer, something shifted in Adam's expression. The question had been meant as a light setup for discussing career highlights, but it had touched on something much deeper that Adam had been considering sharing publicly for the first time. "You know, Jimmy," Adam said, his voice taking on an unusual seriousness, "my most meaningful moments as an entertainer have nothing to do with box office, numbers, or reviews. They happen in places where the audience might not be around much longer." The audience grew slightly quieter, sensing that Adam was moving into unfamiliar territory for a promotional interview. Jimmy leaned forward with genuine interest. "What do you mean?" Adam was quiet for a moment, his usual comedic energy replaced by thoughtful reflection. 8 years ago, I got a letter from a mother whose 10-year-old daughter was dying of cancer. The little girl loved my movies, and her mom wanted me to know that my stupid songs were helping her daughter find joy during treatment. The studio was now completely focused on Adam's words, the energy shifting from anticipatory laughter to attentive listening. "That letter changed everything for me," Adam continued. "I realized that comedy could be more than entertainment. It could be medicine, it could be hope, it could be the thing that helps a dying child remember what it feels like to be a kid." Jimmy was clearly moved by Adam's openness. "Adam, what did you do?" Adam's eyes filled with tears, a sight that shocked the audience, who had never seen this vulnerable side of the usually goofy comedian. "I visited her in the hospital. I sat by her bed and sang the most ridiculous songs you've ever heard. Songs about her stuffed animals, songs about her favorite foods, songs that made her laugh so hard she forgot she was sick." The audience was completely silent now, witnessing a side of Adam Sandler they had never imagined, not the silly man-child of comedy, but a gentle soul who understood that laughter could be the most precious gift you could give someone who was dying. "Jimmy, can I tell you about something I've been doing for the past 8 years?" Adam asked, his voice growing stronger. "Something that's become the most important work of my career?" "Of course," Jimmy replied, sensing that something significant was about to be revealed. Adam took a deep breath and looked directly into the camera. I visit children's hospitals and sing songs to kids who are dying, 67 kids over 8 years, helping them find laughter when everything else feels scary and sad. The studio fell completely silent. Jimmy's expression changed from curious to deeply moved as he began to understand what Adam was describing. "You sing to dying children?" Jimmy asked softly. "I sing stupid songs to dying children," Adam corrected gently, "because when you're 8 years old and facing something that terrifying, you don't need sophisticated humor. You need the kind of pure silliness that reminds you that the world can still be magical." Jimmy felt tears streaming down his face. "Adam, how do you handle something so heartbreaking?" "These kids aren't heartbreaking," Adam said with surprising strength. "They're incredible. They're facing the scariest thing imaginable, and they still want to laugh and sing and be silly. They taught me that my ridiculous songs aren't just entertainment. For some kids, they might be the most important 3 minutes of their day." The audience erupted in applause, but it wasn't the typical comedy show applause. It was recognition, respect, acknowledgement that they were witnessing something sacred. "Can you tell us about one of these children?" Jimmy asked through his tears. Adam smiled sadly. "Emma was my first, 10 years old, leukemia, the biggest smile you've ever seen despite everything she was going through. I sang this completely ridiculous song about her teddy bear becoming a superhero who fought evil germs with hugs and jokes." Adam's voice grew tender as he continued. "Emma died 2 weeks after my visit, but her mom told me that hearing that stupid song was the best day of her whole life. That's when I realized this wasn't just about entertainment anymore. This was about helping kids remember what joy feels like, even when they're dying." Jimmy was openly sobbing. "Adam, you've been carrying this for 8 years?" "I've been blessed for 8 years," Adam replied. "These kids invited me into the most sacred moments of their lives. They trusted me with their fear and their hope, and they let me help them laugh when laughter was the bravest thing they could do." Jimmy looked at Adam with profound respect. "How has this changed you as a performer?" "It's taught me that the goal of comedy isn't to be cool or clever," Adam said. "The goal is to connect with people, to remind them of joy, to help them find light even in the darkest places. My silly songs might seem stupid to adults, but to a dying child, they can be everything." Jimmy made a decision that would become one of the most emotional moments in Tonight Show history. "Adam, do you have any way to share one of these songs with us?" Adam reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small notebook. "I keep notes about every child I visit, including lyrics to songs I wrote for them. There was a little boy named David who loved superheroes, but was scared of his upcoming surgery." Adam's voice became gentle as he began to sing, "David the brave, David the strong, David's got powers that last all day long. When scary things come and try to make you afraid, just remember you're David the brave, David the brave." The melody was simple, the lyrics were silly, but the love behind them was profound. As Adam sang, something beautiful happened in the studio. The audience fell completely quiet. Many people began crying, and everyone understood that they were hearing more than a song. They were hearing a lullaby of comfort for a frightened child. When Adam finished, the studio remained silent for nearly a minute. Finally, Jimmy spoke through his tears. "Adam, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. What happened to David?" "David had his surgery and made a full recovery," Adam said with a huge smile. "He's 12 now, and his mom sends me updates. He still sings that song when he gets scared about anything. But more importantly, he learned that being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means finding courage even when you are afraid." As the segment concluded, something unprecedented happened. The entire studio audience rose, not just in applause, but in recognition that they had witnessed something that transcended entertainment. Many audience members were openly weeping, moved by the recognition that Adam's stupid songs were actually expressions of the purest love. Adam's revelation about his hospital visits became one of the most shared Tonight Show segments in the program's history. But more importantly, it inspired a national conversation about childhood illness, the power of humor in healing, and the responsibility that comes with making people laugh. Children's hospitals across the country experienced increases in volunteer applications from entertainers inspired by Adam's example. Other comedians began sharing their own experiences with using humor in medical settings. Most significantly, medical professionals began incorporating more humor-based therapy into pediatric treatment programs. But perhaps the most meaningful response came from the families Adam had visited over the years, who organized a celebration to honor his 8 years of service. Over 200 people attended, including parents, siblings, and medical staff who had witnessed the transformative power of his ridiculous songs. Adam didn't just entertain our children, said Robert Martinez, whose son had been one of Adam's visits. He gave them permission to still be kids, even when they were dying. He showed them that it was okay to laugh, okay to be silly, okay to find joy even in the scariest moments. 6 months later, Adam was invited back to The Tonight Show for a follow-up segment. He brought with him a collection of videos from families, children who had survived their illnesses singing the songs Adam had taught them, siblings performing the silly characters he had created, parents sharing how his visits had brought light to their darkest days. This is what change looks like, Adam told the audience, showing the videos of healthy children and grateful families. When you help one scared child find laughter, you don't just change their day. You give their family a memory of joy that lasts forever. Adam continues his hospital visits, now with support from his production company and formal partnerships with children's medical centers across the country. His notebook of children he's visited has grown to include over 100 names, each representing a young life touched by the healing power of ridiculous songs and silly characters. Sometimes the most important audiences are the smallest ones, and sometimes the most profound performances happen not on movie screens but in hospital rooms, where laughter might be the last gift you can give someone. Adam Sandler proved that being silly isn't just about entertainment, it's about reminding people, especially children facing impossible challenges, that the world can still be magical, that joy is still possible, and that sometimes a stupid song is the most beautiful thing you can hear. Today, hundreds of families across the country have videos on their phones of Adam Sandler singing ridiculous songs to their children, not as celebrity memorabilia, but as precious reminders that in their darkest moments, someone cared enough to help their child laugh. That's not just good comedy, that's good humanity, demonstrated by one man who understood that making dying children laugh isn't just entertainment, it's sacred work.